Within a week of being elected, the next United States President, Donald Trump, has wasted no time in choosing his team. What do his top 10 cabinet picks tell you about the next 4 years in the United States? What will they mean for India? Hello and welcome to Worldview at The Hindu with me, Suhasini Haider. Now this week, Worldview is going to be a bit more focused. We're actually going to just give you a list of Trump's nominees to top positions in Washington, what their policies are likely to be, what you should know about them, and about Trump foreign policy as a result. To start with, the big messages we're getting already in this past week. Trump is really breaking from the past in every way possible. He's not in Washington. He wants to stay away from the Washington establishment. He's giving that as a message. He's instead at his Florida estate of Mar-a-Lago, with son Don Jr. believed to be vetting the candidates for the next administration. Now, Trump will only take over on January 20th, 2025, but he wants to begin the process early, given the long delays in appointments that he faced in Trump 1.0. Republicans, remember, now control both houses of Congress, so this is likely to be smoother. The choices make it clear that loyalty to Mr. Trump comes first, instead of any concerns over record, past position, controversy, or diversity. And he is announcing his choices first on social media, his Truth Social account, and you can follow what he has to say, frankly, every morning over there. So let's just get to that list of the top 10. The first big names that came out were really for Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. They have been designated to head the Department of Government Efficiency. This is a whole new department. It's been called Orwellian. It's really unclear how far-reaching its powers are going to be in terms of cutting US government girth and cost. Now, as the world's richest man, worth more than $260 billion, Musk is no stranger for Indians. He's also the owner of X, of Tesla, of Starlink. He's been negotiating his entry to manufacturing in India, although his overseas operations are largely China-based. So it remains to be seen really what Musk will do in terms of his own private business with this new powerful position he has. Vivek Ramaswamy, even better known, born to Indian immigrant parents, he set up a biotech company before joining politics. He's unabashedly proud of his Indian origins. Next appointment that was made was Peter Hegseth as Defense Secretary Designate. He's a former war veteran. Peter Hegseth is a Fox News television anchor, virulently anti-China, likely to be a big proponent of arming the Indo-Pacific. He has no government experience and he's believed to have been brought from outside the system to take tough decisions on firing generals within the US government. From the Indian perspective, it will be worth watching what he says about defense transfers to India as well as the Quad. Remember, Mr. Trump is expected to come to India in 2025 when India hosts the Quad summit. So the third big name then is Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. From Florida, he's from a Cuban immigrant family, and he has long bet on ties between India and the US. Take a look at this press release from 2012. He met then Indian Ambassador Nirupama Rao, asserting his belief that India was an important ally and a friend. He was tough on Pakistan's support to terror. And then in July this year, Rubio actually introduced a bill to give India NATO ally status for technology transfers to exempt India from CAATSA sanctions, support it militarily against China. So his appointment is certainly comes as big relief in India, which is wondering how to deal with the turbulent path ahead. Another big name, which will be music to India's ears, Mike Waltz is the National Security Advisor. Mike Waltz himself has been the co-chair of the India-US caucus.
I'm also the co-chair of the US-India caucus, and that is the strategic relationship of the 21st century, in my view, both from an economic and a military standpoint.
In fact, Waltz has advocated for better ties with India. He's been tough on China. He calls for maximum pressure on Iran. So that's worth watching out for. Then there's John Ratcliffe, CIA Director Designate. He was former Director of National Intelligence in Trump 1.0. He's known for his tough views as a former spy on Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. Now, taking his job is perhaps one of the biggest names for India, Tulsi Gabbard, as the Director of National Intelligence designate. This is the nomination that's taken most of the headlines here, although she isn't of Indian origin herself. She's part Caucasian, part Samoan from Hawaii, part Catholic. Gabbard adopted Hinduism as her mother converted to the religion. So that's her connection. The former war veteran, former Democrat, has met Prime Minister Modi at least 4 times, although she dropped out of the Howdy Modi event in Texas in 2019, some say over some concerns about investigations into some of the Indian origin donors into her campaign. She's now a Trump loyalist, an isolationist who met Syrian President Assad. She advocates for better ties with Russia and, interestingly, is against Japan's remilitarization. She called the election a mandate against Kamala Harris for her support for unnecessary wars. Listen in.
Instead embraced President Trump's vision and promise, rejecting the neocons and warmongers of Washington, promising to end wars and prevent World War III and nuclear war, bring our economy back to life, lower the cost of living, and make life better for the American people. So this is a clear mandate that the American people have delivered in this election. And I hope these entrenched politicians in Washington are paying attention, or they will see themselves potentially in the next election without a job.
And then there's Matt Gaetz, Attorney General Designate of the United States. He'll be watched closely in India because he heads up the Department of Justice, if confirmed, which is currently prosecuting the case against suspected Indian government agents like Nikhil Gupta for the assassination plot against Khalistani activist Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, as well as an Indian official in that case. Now, of course, New Delhi is hoping this is a case that is just going to go away, and Gaetz certainly has said he sees India as a friend. Trump has already, by the way, replaced the New York District Attorney who filed that case, of course, for other reasons. However, the most controversial appointment that Gaetz is, he has been investigated by both the FBI and the House Ethics Committee for sexual and financial misconduct. So expect some questions over his confirmation and whether that actually goes through. Then there's Kristi Noem from Dakota as the Secretary of Homeland Security designate, along with Border and Immigration Chief Tom Homan. They are both expected to oversee some of the biggest mass deportations of illegal immigrants from the United States. There's Ellie Stefanik, U.S. Ambassador to the UN designate. She's known for being very critical of the United Nations for its stance on Israel's war on Gaza. And then there's Robert Kennedy Jr., Secretary of Health, who has promised, amongst other radical things, to defluoride drinking water, a vaccine ban, and other such radical ideas. His plan for MAHA, or Make Americans Healthy Again, may mean a cut in funding for many of the health initiatives the US does internationally, including in India. So what can we tell from all of this? I'll get you 5 quick takeaways for Trump foreign policy from the team he has picked. 1, expect tough action on China, more emphasis on alliances in the Indo-Pacific. And the emphasis is on alliances, so maybe a lot more expectation from India on what it does in terms of its military engagement with the Quad and with other Indo-Pacific entities. The second, that Russia may receive a breather on the Ukraine war, but sanctions are unlikely to go. The third, Israel has powerful backers across the administration, all the names I have mentioned, and will receive support in whatever its plans are for Gaza. As a result, expect more sanctions for Iran, which could impact also India's plans for Chabahar port. Fourth, trade policy is likely to be tougher, pro-American manufacturing, anti-tariffs demanding much more on deals with other companies, especially if Robert Lighthizer is picked as the US trade representative, as Mr. Trump has said he would like to do. When asked, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar hedged his bets a bit.
You brought up the United States. Trump has said he will impose trade tariffs on imported goods. Is this a worry?
We don't, in my business, do hypothetical stuff. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Not so much a hypothetical, though. He said he will.
Let's see what happens.
And then there's the question of immigration and deporting illegals, which will be major priorities for the new US administration. And India should also watch for restrictions on professionals and their families as well, because this was something that had been a concern in Trump 1.0. So what's Worldview's take? Given Mr. Trump's trifecta of governance, his presidential will, Republican wins in the House and Senate expect him to go much faster, and much further in his MAGA agenda, Make America Great Again, than his previous tenure. For most part, India's foreign policy interests seem secure, given how many in the cabinet have declared pro-India views. Brace, however, for the impact in areas India does not agree with Trump 2.0, and for the major disruptions that this administration will bring for the global world order, rule of international law, in fact, far more than the COVID pandemic and the conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza is what they're expected to be. I'll also get you some Worldview reading recommendations, and I'm not sure all of those are recommendations, but certainly if you want to know more about Trump's cabinet, here's what you should be reading. To begin with, I have to recommend Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson. It is a really a comprehensive biography of Elon Musk and tells you all you need to know about what he will do going forward in terms of his business philosophy. Then there's Woking and Nation of Victims. These are two books by Vivek Ramaswamy. He's supposed to be a very, very engaging and convincing author. I haven't yet read these books, but I intend to. There's an American Son, a memoir by Marco Rubio. He later wrote a book on US economic policy. But of course, this is important as he is going to be India's main interlocutor as US Secretary of State if he's confirmed. For Love of Country, Leave the Democrat Party Behind. This is by Tulsi Gabbard. It's her latest book and certainly a very interesting look at her thoughts. The War on Warriors, Behind the Betrayal of the Men Who Keep Us Free. This is by Peter Hegseth. No Going Back, The Truth on What's Wrong with Politicians and How We Move America Forward by Kristi Noem. And then a book I've spoken about often called Hillbilly Elegy, a memoir of a family and a culture in crisis by J.D. Vance. So you get the drift of where all of these picks are going. And we hope you join us again here on Worldview for more from the team. Thanks for watching.